How many are getting confirmed this year?
No, remember last year? Everybody was last year. I was doing it. Oh, nobody's invited, but everybody is.
Kara,
Please, I need your attention. You'll have a test on Friday. Okay.
Oh.
On all the material we've covered since the last test.
Oh God.
Wow.
So instead of me writing on the board and you having to write everything down in notebooks, okay, I decided just to put things on paper for you.
Thank you. This is our study guide.
Well, this is part of the study guide, okay. It's kind of a summary of what I've gone over the past several days, and just have to get it rolling here. Oh, I am rolling. Okay. I put the references to the Catechism on here for you. Just downloaded them. Chastity and homosexuality, because a couple of points I just want to make sure you understand, so there aren't misconceptions, because when you speak with people about this issue, there are a lot of misconceptions, even about the church's teaching. In the bold there on 2357, okay, it speaks of basing itself on Scripture, presents homosexual acts as acts of grave depravity. Okay, tradition has always declared the acts are intrinsically disordered. I underline the word acts there because you have to distinguish between acts and inclination. I say this later on. The acts are sinful. An inclination is not. If someone has an attraction is not a sin. Okay? A sin is an action. So if someone has an attraction, that's not a sin. Okay? It's only a sin if one acts upon it. Okay? That's what the Catechism teaches, and that's basic basic theology. Okay? We don't. You have to act on something willfully in order for it to be sinful. Okay? Why are they intrinsically disordered? Well, because they're contrary to the natural law, close the sexual act to the gift of life, and do not proceed from a genuine affective and sexual complementarity. Okay? That word is the key word. Okay? So it's complementarious. Okay? Sexual, physical, okay? and affective, or you could say emotional is another word for that. Okay? Because we already went over this. Men and women, they're emotionally, affectively complementary. Okay? And 2358, the number of men who have such tendencies is not negligible. This inclination, the inclination, okay, which is objectively disordered, constitutes for most of them a trial. Okay? It's a trial. It's not something that someone wants or revels in usually. Okay? And they must be accepted with compassion, respect, sensitivity, every sign of unjust discrimination. Every sign of unjust discrimination in this regard should be avoided. And these persons are called to fulfill God's will in their lives as Christians, to unite their sacrifice, because it's often a cross, to the cross of Christ for difficulties they encounter. Okay? And 2359, they're called to chastity, because everyone's called to chastity. To use our sexual reproductive powers in keeping with God's plan for us, depending upon what your state in life. Okay? So if you're married, you can perform sexual activity. Okay? If you're not married, you can't. You have to abstain. I fall into that category because I'm not married. I'm a celibate priest. I took a promise to remain celibate for life for the sake of the kingdom. Okay? But unmarried people are called to chastity, meaning they cannot engage in sexual activity. And homosexual persons are called to that. And it says here that by the support of disinterested friendship, prayer, sacramental grace, they can do this. Cardinal Francis George says, For anyone to say you can't live a chaste life is to deny the power of Christ's death and resurrection. With Christ, we can do anything. We can get out of sin if we're in sin, okay? Whatever it may be. I already went over Father Harvey's comment. I won't do that, but we're at the bold there in the asterisk note. The Church and the Catechism teach homosexual acts are gravely sinful, but the inclination, same-sex attraction, SSA, while objectively disordered, it's not ordered correctly, it's not itself a sin. So we don't say if someone has an attraction, they're sinning. They're not, as long as they're remaining chaste. Now, I pointed out the Catholic Medical Association is in agreement with the Catechism, sees it as a disorder. The American Psychological Association, for mostly political reasons, declassified it, says it's not a disorder. And former presidents of the APA say now that it is influenced by the gay agenda. It's not scientific in the positions it takes. It's rather biased in favor of the gay agenda, and therefore it lacks credibility. That's what the former presidents are saying. They're angry because they're not really doing good scientific research. They have an agenda. Okay? The Catholic Medical Association, I would recommend reading that. Look it up, Homosexuality and Hope. You can just Google it and read it, because their study is so good. It's based upon, their statement, I should say, is based upon years of studies, of people doing therapy, psychologists like Dr. Joseph Nicolosi. He's cited in the Catholic Medical Association. What his findings have come up with, okay? After thousands of men he's counseled on this, okay? So he presents his findings, okay? And that is why the Catholic Medical Association, based upon doctors like Nicolosi, give some factors which could contribute to someone having a same-sex attraction. For example, alienation from the father, abusive, hostile, distant, alcoholic, not present, overprotective mother for boys, mother was emotionally unavailable for girls, lack of coordination, failure to identify with other males in sports for boys, sexual abuse or rape. Okay? That can affect someone, okay? How they turn out. Now, an important thing I say underneath there, this is on the second page in the back, okay? The above factors can contribute to having a same-sex attraction, but they're not determinative. It doesn't mean someone's going to turn out this way because they've had a cold, distant father. There are plenty of fathers that they may not be the best fathers, but it doesn't mean someone's going to turn out that way. But these are factors which, in studies and therapy, when they delve into the emotional underpinnings of why someone has a same-sex attraction, okay, this is it oftentimes. Okay? That's the key factor, one of the key factors, at least the major factors. And the Catholic Medical Association concludes that if preventive measures are taken, for example, fathers establishing a warm, loving relationship with their children, or helping boys to become coordinated, to be able to engage in play with other boys, that same-sex attraction can be preventable. You can kind of head this off, okay? So you're not falling into this. And the Catholic Medical Association doesn't rule out the possibility of biological factors playing a part in the same-sex attraction. It's just that nothing has been scientifically proved yet. Okay? They floated the gay gene for many years, they dropped that, and now there are other proposals. Well, this has to be studied and verified scientifically with years of study, and that hasn't been done yet. Okay? So it's, but people want to push this and say, this is it. No. Now, the CMA reports success with reparative therapy. Okay? That is therapy which helps those with a same-sex attraction see the environmental or emotional factors which contributes to their same-sex attraction and which can help them change their sexual orientation to that of the opposite sex. You saw Dr. Nicolosi on the film yesterday. Okay? I read his interview with zenitnews.org. You can look that up if you want. And you can see NARTH, the National Association of Research and Therapy of Homosexuality, their website. They talk about the successes that they had. Okay? They have all these links on there. Dr. Nicolosi is a founder of that organization. Okay? And now we compare that with the gay agenda, which promotes the idea that homosexual or same-sex attraction is purely biological. In other words, they're deterministists. Okay? If you have this attraction, you're born this way. There's no choice in the matter, and you cannot change your attraction. That's their line. Okay? And which really doesn't make sense. Like I said, the young man I counseled who came to my door one day, he'd been sexually abused by a priest. He was sexually confused. This wasn't because of biology. This was because he had a trauma to his emotional and psychological and physical life as a teenager by a priest who abused him. Okay? But the gay agenda promotes this idea that it's normal, you can change, and therefore homosexual acts are normal and should be accepted by society as normal. Okay? That's what the agenda is promoting. Okay? The acts are normal. Okay? There's nothing wrong with this. Okay? And any discrimination against them is unjust, okay? As it is, for example, with people of color, black people. Okay? You discriminate against them, that's unjust. Well, no. Okay? Now I cite here, you can look this up, I gave the link, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who became Pope Benedict XVI. Okay? He wrote a document for the church on behalf of the church in June of 2003, considerations regarding proposals to give legal recognition to unions between homosexual persons. Because these were just being floated then, about 10 years ago, okay? To want to have laws changed for people to marry of the same sex. Okay? And he teaches this, okay? Quote, the principles of respect and non-discrimination cannot be invoked to support legal recognition of homosexual unions. Differentiating between persons or refusing social recognition or benefits is unacceptable only when it's contrary to justice. The denial of social and legal status of marriage to forms of cohabitation that are not and cannot be marital, between people of the same sex that is not opposed to justice. On the contrary, justice requires it. Justice requires that we oppose the push for same-sex marriage. They're pushing this in Illinois, they're about to do it, they're trying, they've just come a few votes short, okay? So the agenda, the gay agenda also says, therefore, same-sex marriage should be accepted, that same-sex couples should be able to adopt children, okay? And we say no, okay? No, because children have a right to a mother and a father. Okay? To deprive them of this would be a grave injustice. And actually, recent studies show that there is harm, psychological and even other harm to children that grow up with same-sex parents. Okay, because you're dealing with something that's not normal. Okay? Catholic dioceses are out of the adoption service now. In Peoria, Illinois, they had to pull out because they were saying, well, the state said, if you're going to participate in adoption, you have to work with gay couples. And the Bishop of Peoria, Bishop Jenkins, says, we can't do this. And there have been a number of dioceses across the country. We can't cooperate with this because this is an injustice to children. We can't be placing children with people of the same sex because children have a right to have a mother and a father. Okay? And same-sex couples should be allowed to do other things, rent wedding halls. Those who refuse are persecuted. Now, I went over yesterday some things about the agenda that is being pushed from the writings of those who promote the agenda. Their book After the Ball. Okay, this is a Kenosha News, Saturday, October 12th. This was just a couple of weeks ago. Okay, GLAAD, which is gay, lesbian, and it stands for something else, I forget. They are a watchdog group to promote gay rights. And as the article says here, this is section C4 in Kenosha News, the gay rights organization GLAAD gave high marks to ABC, Family, Fox Broadcasting, ABC, NBC, CW. What's CW? What is that? It's what? It's a channel. Okay. For their inclusiveness and positive portrayal of gays, lesbians, transgender characters on television. Okay. The show Pretty Little Liars features multiracial lesbian teenager as lead character. Fox showed the most improvement. 42% of its prime time. This is interesting. 42% of Fox's prime time hours include lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender impressions. Okay? In other words, 42% of their programming is promoting this. Okay? The schools are beginning to indoctrinate children. Okay? And in New York, this has been a big battle for years. And the film I was showing yesterday, I cut it off. It went in to show how they were trying to get into the schools. They've made their much more success in the past 20 years. And this is an article from Lightside News just a couple of years ago where a gay columnist says, let's face it, we want to indoctrinate children. He says, while gay activists usually deny they want to indoctrinate children, he says, let's face it, that's a lie. We want educators to teach future generations of children to accept this as something that's normal, okay? That's good. The idea of it being promoted and is not only with the television movie industry, okay? Our government is promoting this with the current administration, okay? I have a printout from the presidential website, okay? Barack Obama, progress for the LGBT community, okay? They're bragging about all the good things that the Obama administration has done. You know, a couple of them, I'll read them. They hosted the first ever White House LGBT Pride reception, okay, to celebrate this, okay? Another thing they said here, this is this year, came out against North Carolina's amendment which would prohibit same-sex marriage in the state, okay? There's an article in the Kenosha News, this is a couple of years ago actually, when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, and she was quoted as saying, the United States will use diplomacy and aid to help expand the rights of gay people around the world. Okay? I read in about 2 years ago, the bishops, the government of, pardon me, Guatemala, they said, we're going to refuse aid if you're going to tie aid to, you know, gay marriage and all these other social agenda that you have. We're not going to cooperate with this. But our government's promoting this around the world. And this is a page from my own bulletin that I put in a couple of months ago. The United States Department of Education was investigating a junior ROTC instructor who was reported to have said the Bible condemns homosexuality. So, in other words, if you're instructing this in school, you can be investigated. And the investigators said that the teacher was subjecting students to a hostile environment on the basis of sex harassment based upon failing to conform to gender stereotypes. That may sound kind of odd. In other words, if you're telling students that men should act like men and women like women, and men and women should marry each other rather than men marrying men and women marrying women, well then you are imposing a gender stereotype on students, which is unfair, and you can be investigated for this. Okay? I commented that okay, if I preach on that this is a sin and condemned by the Bible, encourage people to live chastely, well, am I going to be investigated for imposing a gender stereotype on people if someone's offended in my congregation? Okay? I guess Jesus, when he caught the woman, or telling the woman caught in adultery, go and sin no more, Jesus committed the same crime, because he was forcing her to conform with a male stereotype about women. Well, no, this is just nonsense. These accusations. A few examples of harassment of people that have been opposed to or taken a stand on against, say, the gay agenda or homosexual marriage. Okay, in Massachusetts and Illinois, I mentioned Catholic Charities was forced out of adoption services. Okay, because it won't place same-sex couples with, or children with same-sex couples. The Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. was forced to discontinue some employment benefits because it wouldn't provide help to same-sex couples. So they had to say, well, we won't provide any employment benefits. If we're going to be sued by the government for not supplying them to same-sex couples, well, we won't supply employment benefits. We'll have to withdraw from them. That's an injustice to everyone else. Okay? A New Jersey Methodist-run pavilion used for religious services lost its tax-exempt status because it wouldn't host a same-sex marriage there. Okay? I said yesterday, my prediction is the Catholic Church is going to lose its tax-exempt status for failing to perform homosexual marriages, okay? Same-sex marriages. The government will say, well, you're unjustly discriminating. Well, I'm sorry, we can't cooperate with this. Okay? In Hawaii, churches went to court to stop a tax law to force churches to allow same-sex ceremonies on their property. Okay? This who's our attorney here? An elderly Christian couple, this was from LifeSite News, is now facing fines for refusing to provide flowers for a gay wedding. Okay? I'm someone who runs a business. Okay? If I know this is going on, I don't want to supply flowers to this. That would conflict with my conscience. Okay? Well, they're being sued for a civil rights violation. Okay? And that's in Virginia. And then closer to home, there were a bed and breakfast couple in Illinois where a gay couple came to rent a room in their bed and breakfast. If you know what a bed and breakfast is, okay? You can, like your home, you can rent out a room and have a bed and breakfast. And they said, well, we're not allowing you to come into our home. Well, they got sued for this. So this idea that we're going to have to conform to the agenda is unjust to us. Okay? And we, as I said yesterday, we love the sinner, but we hate the sin. And we can't say we can go along with this agenda. We can't say we can go along with these laws and policies that inflict upon or conflict with our conscience and our right to religious liberty. Okay? But the laws are changing. Okay? And your generation is going to face the brunt of this more so than mine did. This was unheard of when I was your age. Okay? 20 years ago, this was pretty much just starting out, and now it's snowballed to something much bigger and more powerful. The agenda is out there; it's very strong, and our laws will be changing to, it looks like, side with those who are promoting this agenda. And what's going to happen? Well, who knows? Okay. This is one of the reasons Cardinal George said, "I'm going to die in my bed. My successor will likely die in prison, and his successor will be a martyr." Okay? Will there be martyrs over this issue? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it looks like it's just getting more and more oppressive for Christians to be Christians and to stand up for their rights, okay? And to assert their rights in the public square. Okay? We have a right to our beliefs, and don't say that we're, the people that claim we're intolerant, they're the most intolerant, because if you depart from their agenda, they say, oh, no, you can't do this, okay? You won't rent your hall to, there was a KFC hall that they said, we're not going to rent to a homosexual couple for a wedding reception. But the Knights of Columbus, we can't do this, we're a Catholic organization. Well, you'll get sued then. Sorry, we can't cooperate. These cases are going to court right now. I know attorneys in Illinois, a friend of mine, Tom Breka, Thomas More Society, he's defending these people that are being persecuted. Does anyone know why it would be called the Thomas More Society? Does anyone know about St. Thomas More? Who he was? Pardon me?
No, my address.
Have you ever seen the movie Man for All Seasons? No? You never did. Okay. Academy Award in 1966. Okay. St. Thomas More was the Lord Chancellor of England. He held the highest legal authority in England, in the country. Okay. And he lived at the time of a king named Henry VIII. Does anyone know what Henry VIII did from your church history? Anyone? Yes,
Did he start the Anglican Church?
Well, he basically started the Anglican Church. He was a Catholic. How did he start? Why did he start the Anglican Church? It wasn't something that he really intended on starting. And if you had asked him if he was starting an Anglican Church, he would have said no, because he claimed to be Catholic. But he did something which resulted in the Anglican Church being formed. You know?
I think he wanted to get remarried.
He did.
He wanted a divorce.
To
get
a divorce from whom? Do you know?
I don't know.
He was married to a princess from Spain named Catherine of Aragon. Catherine of Aragon. And Catherine of Aragon bore him, a number of sons died in childbirth, but she bore one daughter that was Mary. Okay? But King Henry, he had two problems. He wanted a male heir for the crown. Okay? Female heir wouldn't do for him. And also, Henry VIII was not chaste in marriage. Okay? To practice chastity in marriage means what? Roman, what's chastity in marriage?
Not having sex
Outside of
marriage.
marriage, yeah. And Henry VIII was not being chaste. Okay? Henry VIII played around with a lot of women. Okay? And Henry VIII was having, well, he had an affair with does anyone know who he married after Catherine of Aragon? Oh, you haven't had that in church history, okay? Anne Boleyn, okay? He wanted Anne Boleyn, and what Henry VIII claimed was, my marriage to Catherine of Aragon is invalid because Catherine of Aragon was married to Henry's brother, Edward, first. But she never consummated the marriage with Edward because he was sick. And they were married when they were very young. Okay? And he ended up dying. She never consummated the marriage. She swore an oath. We never got together as husband and wife. Okay? So Henry VIII, when he wanted to marry Catherine of Aragon, he petitioned the Pope and said, is it okay if I marry my dead brother's wife? The marriage was never consummated. The Pope said, investigated it and said, yes, there's no problem. You can marry her. Okay? No bargaining. Okay? Well, after Henry was married to her and she didn't produce a son for him, only a daughter, okay? Henry began playing around, and Henry wanted to marry Anne Boleyn. So then he claimed, after the fact, oh, the Pope shouldn't have given me a dispensation to marry my dead brother's wife. Okay? The Pope was wrong, and now I feel guilty about this. Yeah, right, he felt guilty. He wanted to marry Anne Boleyn. So he divorces Catherine of Aragon, and, well, he couldn't in the Catholic Church marry Anne Boleyn, so what did he do? He says, the Pope is not head of the church in England.
He is.
I'm the head of the church in England. Henry VIII, okay? It's me. I'm the head of the church. And he made everyone swear an oath of fidelity that he was the head of the church in England. And anyone who refused the oath, and really those who gave reasons why, was put to death. You lost your head. Okay? Thomas More was the king's good friend and his confidant. King Henry VIII appointed Thomas More as his Lord Chancellor, the head legal authority in England. And Henry VIII wanted Thomas More to go along with him, that the marriage to Catherine of Aragon was wrong, and now he should be able to marry Anne Boleyn. And Thomas More said, I can't agree with this. I can't agree that, you know, I think your thinking is wrong on this, okay? So Thomas More lost his job as the Lord Chancellor of England, but everyone in all of Europe knew that Thomas More wasn't going along with Henry VIII, because this reverberated around the world almost, okay, the known world. And Henry VIII couldn't stand this. It aggravated him that Thomas More wouldn't go along with his divorce of Catherine of Aragon and marriage to Anne. And So he made everyone in the realm swear an oath of fidelity, saying, I recognize King Henry VIII as the head of the church in England. Well, Thomas More wouldn't take the oath, but he wouldn't say why he wouldn't take the oath. He was a good lawyer. And unless you stated why he wouldn't take the oath, Henry VIII couldn't touch him legally. If you said, well, I think Henry VIII was wrong or whatever, Thomas More never opened his mouth to anyone, not even his family, why he wouldn't take that oath. Because he knew that if he did, he'd get his head cut off. And we have accounts of the trial of Thomas More. Thomas More was brought before the House of Lords, and they were basically a stamp for the king. They wanted Thomas More to be found guilty of refusing to take the oath, okay? But they had no evidence against him. So there was a young man in the kingdom named Richard Rich who perjured himself and swore before the House of Lords. I was in the Tower of London. By the way, Thomas More was put in the Tower of London for a couple of years in jail because he wouldn't swear the oath. And Richard Rich said, I heard Thomas More say that he wouldn't take the oath because he thought it was illegal, that the king was wrong. And Thomas More said, wait a minute, can you believe this man? He says, I kept my mouth shut. I wouldn't tell anyone, my family members, and you think I'm going to open my mouth to this guy? And on the way out of the courtroom, after Richard Rich perjures himself, he's wearing a medallion. And Thomas More, as Richard's heading out the door, says, wait a minute, come here. What is that medallion you have on? And Richard Rich says, well, it's the Lord Chancellor of Wales. The king appointed him the Lord Chancellor of Wales, the highest legal authority, as a reward for perjuring himself against Thomas More. And Thomas More's famous words to Richard Rich as he's leaving the courtroom, he says, oh, a man profiteth nothing if he gain the world, but loseth his soul. But for Wales? Then the House of Lords finds Thomas More guilty, and Thomas More is executed. Okay? And his last words were, I die the king's good servant, but God's first. Okay? These are all historical accounts of what happened. Okay? There's a playwright named Robert Bolt who was an atheist who read the story of Thomas More, who was so impressed by Thomas More's stand, refusing to go along and willing to go to his death for this principle of Christian marriage, okay, that he wrote a play. And that play is The Man for All Seasons. A Man for All Seasons. It was on Broadway for a number of years, and then it was performed in a movie, and it won the Academy Award in 1966. And I just saw the play performed live in Waukegan, not this past, the Saturday before the Saturday. Okay? I went with a number of priests. It was an excellent performance, just terrific, very inspiring. Okay? So I highly recommend that you get and watch A Man for All Seasons sometime. You've never seen it? Okay. No, you said you know the story. How do you know the story?
I took history.
You took history?
Yeah.
Did no one else take history here, or what?
I had honors history, so it's different from
Okay.
everyone else.
You had honors history. Okay. Yes?
Back to what we were talking about
What?
before.
Yes,
about
yes.
gays. If you say that gays it's like from environmental factors, then how do you explain like the structural brain differences in gays?
Wait.
You're such a calm day.
Females have a smaller hypothalamus than males, but gay men have a hypothalamus the size of women, and lesbian women have a hypothalamus the size of men. Like it was all in the paper.
No, I read that too. And the hypothalamus, that was a study that was done that's never been replicated. Okay. And it's not good science. It's not conclusive, in other words.
But there's other things too, like the hemispherical asymmetry. Like I gave you a whole chart.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to go through every one of those, but those things, like I said, those it's like the statement itself has said, when I went to the website, it said, this is all questionable, and it's not.
That was about the hormones, no, not the structure. That was directly from my psych book, like the whole chart thing.
Okay. But one of the sources, you know,
that was a different source. That had nothing to do with the chart.
but that source was informative. Okay, okay. I want to answer questions. Okay, I want to be fair. Okay, so that source that I looked up myself, okay, admitted that a number of these studies are inconclusive. Okay, they are not scientifically proved with longitudinal studies. We have no sure evidence on this. It's hypothetical, in other words. Okay? It's not good, solid science. Like I said, if it was, we'd be seeing this all over the papers, all over the news, that, oh, this is conclusive. It's not. Okay? And another thing that's rather dishonest about it, it's biased, okay, is that they're claiming that this is determinative. Okay? The people that are saying this say environmental factors have nothing to do with it. That's ludicrous. Okay? No, and the good, honest people say we don't deny that there could be environmental factors, but we don't have any real hard scientific proof yet that these are determinative or result in or contribute to that same-sex attraction. Okay? And like I said, if you're dealing with men who have engaged in this activity, okay. We don't know the effects of the lifestyle on the changes in the brain. These things haven't been studied yet. Because, like I said, men absorb things into their bodies, okay, which, who knows if those have a change on their brain. And you may see some things in a few people, but not in others, okay? So it's just not, there's inconclusive evidence for these things, okay? And I think, I would like to see your psychology book. I know they were citing the APA for their basis, correct?
No, they're citing like specific studies.
Okay. But those are, like I said, they're not conclusive yet. Okay? There's nothing conclusive on this, and the gay agenda wants to say this. This is their zealous pursuit of this, because boy, if they can find something and say, oh, this is the cause of it, well, then they're saying we're going to exclude everything else and exclude the environmental factors. No, let's just be fair. Look at everything. Okay, it may have something to do with it, you know, these things, but this just hasn't been proven yet. Okay, but it wouldn't be determinative. Okay? Even if someone may
I'm
have.
honestly asking, like, how do you explain those differences then? If it has nothing to do.
Well, I haven't researched it enough, but what I researched was the scientists who have looked into it and said, you know, it's inconclusive now. We don't have conclusive evidence that this makes someone this way. That's the jump that they can't verify. So yes.
But so you're saying like they haven't found anything yet, but say if they were to find something medical, then wouldn't that disprove all of what you have been saying?
No, it would say, what it would do would say, this may be a contributing cause to something.
The following students, please report to guidance at the bell.
It may be a factor.
Michelle Bardwash and Jack Burke, please report to guidance at the bell.
But you
The
have
following students, please report to the main office at the bell. Trey Glass, Alex Hartford, Easton Claver, Kristen Kin, Emily Benitez, Matthew Broderick, Christopher Davis, Emily Danko, Zane Fanny, Ronnie Frederick, Matthew Bureau, Scott Grumkowski, Andrew Herron, Adam Iwan, Connie Jolly, Andrew Lavin, Nathan Maglio,